Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to welcome you to the 36th Annual Collegiate Conference and Job Fair. We're going to kick things off with, give me one second. I want to kick things off by thanking our sponsors. We have a lot of great companies that help support AMA Atlanta, so I want to give them a shout out here. I'm going to walk through our agenda for today just to give everyone an idea of what to expect. So we're going to start off with the opening keynote for 30 minutes, talking about marketing and just the marketing industry in general. Then we're going to go into some breakout sessions where we're going to get a chance to meet you guys. We're going to talk about resumes, LinkedIn, job interviewing, and then we're going to have a last 20-minute session where we're going to talk about anything you want to talk about. If you want to throw questions out in the breakout sessions, please feel free to do so. But this will be another chance to where if we didn't answer something earlier, you can ask your questions then. And then we're going to do a quick lunch break, come back and announce our scholarship winners, and then we'll do a closing keynote with Briar Doherty. And that's going to be a great session talking about how to sell yourself. And then we're going to close it with a job fair. We have 5 great companies today, so I'm really excited to introduce them to you. Let's get started. To kick things off, I'm going to introduce Robert. Robert, I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shelby. Yeah, I am happy to kind of host this little panel discussion as we talk through different elements of marketing and especially building a good career in marketing. So let's kick it off. Obviously, you can see all of the panelists that we got here to answer some of the questions you guys shared as you registered for this conference. So let's start with some introductions. We're going to begin with Melissa Berger. Melissa, why don't you take it away and let us know a little bit about who you are, who you're with, and a little bit about your job responsibilities.
Yeah, thank you. Melissa Berger, I am with Digitas, which is a part of Publicis Group, one of the largest agency holding companies in the world. So most of you, if you are interested in this space, will recognize that. I am the EVP of strategy. I lead all of our regions from a strategic perspective, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes. And I also lead CRM and loyalty. So customer relationship marketing, not email, not a platform, any touch of the customer. So anyone who's interested in talking about that, you can reach out to me as well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Next up, we have Dwayne Smith. Dwayne, let us know a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, good morning. Dwayne Smith, a group strategy director at the Trade School. Trade School is part of an independent holding company called Guided by Good. It also houses 22 Squared and a few other agencies. We actually spun out of 22 Squared a couple of years ago, so still somewhat in its infancy. And so one of the big things that we focus on is sort of this hybridized approach to scaling content and the craft of strategy as it relates to developing content. And so as it relates to me and my responsibilities, it is overseeing a team of these sort of hybridized strategists in comms planning, media planning, creative strategy, as well as performance marketing and measurement.
Awesome. Excited to have you on the panel as well.
Happy to be here.
Next up, we all have Molly Haiti. So Molly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Hi, everyone. Molly Haiti. I'm the director of email and CRM at an agency called Wavebreak. We specialize in email, CRM, and SMS marketing for specifically direct-to-consumer e-commerce retail brands. So if you guys are interested in learning more about email, SMS, and those specific industries that we work very closely with, I'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. And then finally, we have Amber Higgins. Amber, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yes, thank you, Robert. As Robert mentioned, my name is Amber Higgins. I'm a digital marketing strategist for Capstorm. Capstorm is a small B2B software company that provides data management and disaster recovery solutions for Salesforce users. I'm primarily focused on growing the digital footprint of the Capstorm brand, driving new pipeline ad, facilitating deep funnel acquisition, and generating revenue via digital streams, which basically is industry talk for help get leads in the door through digital marketing channels. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please holler.
Awesome. Yeah, and I will say we do have a tight 30 minutes here to kind of get through a lot of different content. There's so many different things that we could dive deep into, but everybody on the panel here has graciously said that if you have any other questions or any other follow-up things on something that they mentioned today, you're welcome to reach out to them on LinkedIn so that you can chat more. So thanks everybody for doing that. We'll also do another quick round of introductions because this is a collegiate conference. and we want to give everybody some context. Why don't we go around the panel and kind of explain where everyone went to school and what your degree was in, which may not necessarily be marketing. So Amber, why don't you start us off with that?
Yeah, so I graduated from Georgia State University, go Panthers, and my degree was in marketing.
Awesome, awesome. Molly, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a transplant, so I'm originally from Arizona. I went to Arizona State for college, and I was actually an education major. So I had a very interesting path going into the marketing space.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily need a marketing degree to have a career in marketing. Dwayne,
Yes,
what about you?
100%.
Yeah, I went to a small school up in Northeast Pennsylvania called Lehigh University. I did major in marketing there, but I think one thing that I've discovered over the years in media specifically is an econ major would have been very helpful in terms of accelerating my career and how I think about sort of the white spaces and arbitrage in paid media.
Interesting. Yeah, there's certainly different elements that you can definitely pull into marketing and kind of cobble a career together. So finally, Melissa, why don't you share where you went to school?
Yeah, I went to Duke University, go Devils, Final Four this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I actually not a marketing degree either. I did psychology, focused a lot on psychology of business and actually sports marketing at the time, which I'm not in as much today. And I got a markets and management certificate from Duke. There is no business or marketing major there, but I actually feel like the psychology degree really helped me understand, to Dwayne's point, like understand the customer, understand how people think, make decisions. So I agree. You do not have to have a marketing degree to be in marketing. That is a fact.
Awesome. Well, good. We obviously have a kind of wide variety of universities and degrees and all that kind of stuff. And I think that'll be reflected in this panel discussion. Again, we have a lot of great perspectives. So let's dive into some of the questions. Melissa, starting with you, kind of from a strategy perspective, what are some of the skills, either hard skills or soft skills, that somebody might need to get into a career in marketing, and specifically if they're interested in focusing in strategy?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a little bit of a loaded question because I run teams that do brand strategy, creative strategy, connection strategy, experience strategy, social strategy, right? So it kind of depends. There are many ways to go. And I think how I got connected to this, one of the women on my team said, like, share that, right? There's not one flavor of strategy. That's important to know. One of the biggest things, all of you who hate your group projects, those are important. Okay. If you're a strategist, you are working with a team, you are collaborating. Yes, sometimes you're frustrated, people aren't pulling their weight. Well, when you're in the job world, that ends very differently. So I think something to consider is the team collaboration, and being able to do that is important. Problem solving, that's all I do all day. Right? Solving problems, understanding what the actual problem is important. So we might get a brief from a client, and in the interrogation, realize there's actually a different business problem we're solving. I think another piece is understanding the consumer. So that could be helping conduct actual research. That could be using all the second and third party resources that are out there. That could be doing a scrappy research, right? Asking friends, family, sending out a Google survey to your agency, to your partners. So there's different ways to get at it, but I think really understanding the customer is where you really want to start. Storytelling, that's probably the last thing I'll say, being able to tell the story. So that's one thing. If none of you have taken a class around that, I would, even if it's not a part of your university training, I would do that kind of on your own, because the storytelling sells the business and sells the idea just as much as some shiny, amazing creative. So it is really important in how you tell the story.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for those things. Obviously, those are some of those skills that don't necessarily change very often, even as digital platforms change. Those
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Dwayne mentioned this too. It's like you have to stay up on platforms, right? Everything changes daily. I actually just got back last night from Shop Talk, which was out in Las Vegas, a retail focused conference. And all of the socially native and digitally native brands that have started, they're like, we shift daily. We're constantly paying attention to what's changing. We have a bucket of money that's used only for testing, and we know that. We know it's for a long tail return. So it was really interesting to hear that the importance on change management and being able to evolve quickly is of the utmost importance now, especially in digital strategy.
Yeah, that actually leads in well, because that was going to be the next question I had for Dwayne, is how do you stay up to date on all of those different many changing marketing platforms?
I'd argue it's a trick question. You don't.
Okay.
especially given the change of pace in the digital landscape in particular. I think, I'm a little bit of a dinosaur. So when I did first start out in paid media, it was in TV and radio buying, right? And that's, a fairly standard process. And that has accelerated tremendously since. And so, as it relates to staying up on things, as I mentioned, the digital space, one thing I like to try to do is find different points of aggregation. Sometimes that's like my email inbox. And so subscribing to trade newsletters, whether it be Ad Exchanger, Adweek, Digiday, et cetera, and having those sort of funneled and marked and coded to go to a particular place in my inbox. That's one way I try to stay up on things. Another is, looking at RSS feeders. So you start to pipe in things that aren't maybe, newsletter subscription accessible. And having them sort of aggregated in certain buckets, so you can kind of switch your brain off and on between certain elements of strategy. As Melissa was sort of mentioning, some things might be very specific to your client work. Other things just might be passion points that add perspective to the work that you or to the thoughts you integrate into your work. And then lastly, just immersing yourself in culture outside of what your day-to-day is or your general peer group. Sort of just experiencing the town you're in, different aspects of it, traveling, and sort of being more intentional about, when you're in the moment and sort of making either mental notes or actual notes around, what's moving people, how people are engaging in different forms of media and what kind of content is resonating and moving the needle.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, you kind of have to constantly stay updated, always be a student, even after you graduate. Yeah, awesome. Speaking of education, Molly, that's what you studied in school. So how did you kind of find your way into marketing? What sparked your interest in marketing, especially email?
Yeah, so I had an education degree, was totally planning on becoming a teacher post-college, but I was nannying for a family during college. So I had a part-time job and they had a connection. They're like, we have an opening on the marketing team. It was very much like marketing / HR. Like I was doing culture and things like that, but I was able to get a taste of a lot of different areas in marketing. And one of them was email. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about email, and you could say this for many different areas of marketing, but it's a great mix of being able to be creative and have that kind of abstract thinking and really, be able to be super creative. But then also you have that other side of being very analytical and having the numbers drive your decisions. So I really liked being able to have that balance and use my creativity, but then also be able to like hone in on my analytical skills and have those sort of support each other.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like it was very much just kind of opportunity based. You kind of found your way into it.
Yes, networking is very, very important. Even if you don't think it'll be, an opportunity, it's great to have a good network and strong network because you never know who they know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Amber, you obviously work in SEO. That's kind of your specialty. What if somebody's interested, who's watching now, interested in SEO or marketing in general, what kind of opportunities should they be looking for? What kind of jobs or careers could they expect if they're focusing on SEO?
Yes, I love this question because truly there is an abundance of opportunities available for the SEO discipline. If you love writing, you could be an SEO content strategist and, focus on writing relevant search-worthy content, or if you want to be a little bit more analytical and technical, you could be a technical SEO where you solely focus on analyzing and improving website performance and technical health for optimal visibility. Or you could be a generalist as an SEO manager and just do it all. There really are no limits when it comes to roles within SEO. The spectrum is very, very broad, and there are truly roles that will fit anyone's interests. So you really can't go wrong.
Awesome. Have you found a niche that you like especially more, or do you kind of cover the gamut with a couple of different?
I would say I'm more of a generalist. I love doing it all. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we've obviously covered a couple of different areas of digital marketing. There's even more, probably more than we have time to cover today. Melissa, from your standpoint, you mentioned there's even different sub areas within strategy. Like, how does somebody find the right niche to go into? How do you kind of settle on the right area to focus on within digital marketing?
It's a great question. I don't know about everybody else on this panel, but entry-level strategy, especially at large agencies, is not always the first job, right? Like part of becoming a good strategist is learning and evolving and being involved. So I actually have a lot of junior people that reach out to me and college graduates that want a job. And I say, go for an account management job, maybe even get into paid media, which I think, Amber and Dwayne can attest to, because you learn a ton. And I've actually shifted a lot of people into strategy that came from a different area of expertise and really want to get into it. But it does kind of take some knowledge. We've started hiring some more junior strategists, but the experience is really needed. You have a lot of responsibilities. So I think depending on what area you want to go in, if you are interested in an agency space and you're not seeing a junior role, apply for an account role. That gives you a really good breadth of the type of work that the agency does. And you can kind of partner with and start to build some relationships with strategy. So Molly mentioned networking. Every job I've received in my life is from someone I know.
Yeah, same.
Just digest that a little bit, right? So knowing people and staying connected and using your resources is so incredibly important. And again, it's hard to say exactly like the type of strategy to go. It really is dependent on like what you're passionate about. So if you're passionate about a certain type of work or something you're learning in some of your classes, reach out to your network and have a conversation. But again, if there's nothing else, I would absolutely go for kind of an account management role and really learn and try to move into strategy.
Awesome. One quick kind of follow-up to that, because you're mentioning, it's you may want to transition from one kind of area to another. Is there a piece of advice you mentioned around how to pivot from one kind of area to the next?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it is the relationship building, right? The ones that have kind of reached out to me or my team and said, hey, I'm really interested in strategy someday. I connect them with either someone on my team that can be a mentor, start to work with them. We actually won a new piece of business that I'm going to be, we have an account lead who is interested. So we're going to have him shadow someone on that project. So it's really just about, again, kind of raising your hand, making it known, and building the right relationships internally. And then I think, you've got to show what you can do. So being able to either help in the background on a project or shadow someone and really kind of showcase your skill set is going to be really important. So if you get the opportunity, make sure you're ready and you take advantage of it.
That's great. Thank you for that. Dwayne, you talked a lot about how to stay up to date on things. I mean, it's a never endless stream of different things you can learn and different things you can manage. How do you balance that with personal life? How do you kind of find that ever elusive work-life balance, especially within digital marketing and paid media?
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I think when I was younger, and I recognize it now, but when I was younger, I don't think there was a lot of that balance. And it's not because it was impossible. It was more so because of the quote unquote optics around shutting it down too early, right? And one of the rules of thumb that I was always coached with going in was you don't leave your desk until at least your boss has left, right? I do think, even outside of the pandemic, the industry has started to shift and grow a little bit as it relates to that dynamic. And it's become a little bit more healthy, a little bit more flexible as it relates to what it looks like in terms of defining being accountable to your team, being accountable to your clients and responsive within the hours of work. And so that's helped just sort of a general evolution in terms of how and the ways in which we work. But in terms of me trying to create boundaries, what I like to do going into a given week or even a given day is outline some core priorities or items that need to be moved forward in some way, shape, or form, right? And so it helps you sort of schedule and outline what meetings to attend are actually valuable or important, or just maybe things that somebody else on your team can be delegated to handle and then debrief you on. So you don't end up in a situation where you have these projects that are priorities, but you end up being in back-to-back meetings and aren't able to actually tackle or move them forward. And so I think going into a week ahead of time and outlining some key priorities, whether it's 3 to 5 big things to tackle and then some small projects day to day, is a really good way to define for yourself what a good stopping point might look like. So if you've accomplished those things in the day, great. There may be other things that you want to tackle above and beyond that, but you've given yourself the license and freedom to kind of shut it down now that you've sort of given or outlined what a stopping point looks like.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's been easier to implement as your career goes on, or was it
Absolutely?
easier?
Yeah, you do get a little more freedom and license as you sort of gain responsibility and purview. However, I think what I find and what I encourage with my team members is having that transparency. Like I said, when I first started off in the business, I don't think there was the same level or expectation of a two-way discussion with your boss around life events. You just kind of had to, figure it out above and beyond your work. But now, and like I said, my management style is to kind of have that two-way conversation, because at the end of the day, we work to live, we don't live to work. And I want to make sure that, that ethos and that idea is understood across the team, because you're going to get the best work when you do have that balance.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. So as you kind of alluded to, things have changed a lot during the pandemic. That's become a much kind of trickier, complex thing to manage, especially when it comes to remote work. So Molly, I know you'd said when we had conversations before that you've had to kind of juggle on a remote team. So how does that impact your work, especially when it comes to email marketing?
Yeah. So first of all, I echo everything Dwayne said. Being able to prioritize and make sure that you're staying organized and understanding what is going on is huge. And being able to shut things off and go back to normal life is really important. And I feel like that is a little more challenging with remote, because you're living in your office usually, or there's not as much of that line or those routines that you have where you're like, okay, I'm driving to work, now I'm going into work mode, or I'm driving home, now I can unwind. So coming up with little routines like that, I think, are super helpful in terms of helping you just stay sane and also adjust to that remote living or remote working. I have had a few years experience, as many of you also have had with that. So that's been helpful. But also just in terms of like team camaraderie and everything like that, it is more challenging to do when you're remote, but just, trying to have human conversations with your team members, not only reaching out to somebody to ask them for something or to talk about something you're working on for a client and whatnot. Remember that everybody you're working with is human. They all have lives outside of work too. I feel like it's very easy to just get like so bogged down. So yeah, just being human and friendly and a kind person to your coworkers makes a huge difference, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah. I love that idea around, because that was one of the things we lost a little bit, was kind of company culture and how to stay in touch with people. So have you found ways to like even practical, tactical ways to keep those relationships going, even if you're kind of physically separated?
Yeah. So before COVID, I was working at an agency where one of the huge, really big benefits was the in-office culture and being able to go and talk to somebody over in the kitchen area or go get coffee with someone, things like that, are a lot harder to do when you're remote. But in my new role, we're actually a fully remote agency. So we have people in Florida and North Carolina and Seattle and everywhere. And just asking about like the different things going on in everybody's lives, even just saying like, hey, what's the weather like where you are today? And like, oh my God, there was this crazy thunderstorm last night, all this stuff, like very little, silly things like that. Just help build that comfortability with each other and that trust with each other. That just, make it a little bit easier to work together and build that camaraderie.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing that it kind of, you can lose sight of sometimes is how much fun that this work can be. It can be a grind sometimes, and it can be tough to find that work-life balance. But Amber, when it comes to you and your work, your career, what's been the most rewarding thing? What things have you enjoyed most about being a digital marketer?
Well, I think the most rewarding piece of my career in SEO and just digital marketing in general is, being able to, ideate strategies based on the needs of the brand, implementing the strategies and, tracking and qualifying performance with quantifiable metrics, and also, just making my clients happy, of course. And, I do have the ability to be my own boss and work for myself through freelance work. Which I find extremely valuable and rewarding as well. So yeah.
Awesome. So do you have a full-time role and do freelance on the side?
I do.
Awesome. How do you juggle those two things?
Basically just organizing my time. I do have to dedicate some time after the typical 9 to 5, but this is something that I love to do. So it's, no sweat off my back.
Awesome. So yeah, just kind of keep those rewarding things in the top of your mind, and that kind of helps. I think, with the grind and hustle, sometimes it can still be rewarding and enjoyable.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, as we start to wind down here, as we start to get at the end of time, I wanted to ask one last question again of everybody on the panel, and that is, what is the best piece of career advice that's really stuck with you maybe that you received years and years ago or that you've received recently? What's the thing that really stands out? And Melissa, we'll start with you.
Yeah. A couple of things. I think one is you're defining your future, right? It's your career. Do not wait for someone to define it for you, and do not wait around for someone to give you the accolades and the job you really want. You need to go for it. So, there's ways to be kind of assertive and ways to make sure that you're kind of building up your brand and your reputation, which are really, really important. One comment on the balance piece. The only thing I'd push there too is you need to set your boundaries, right? Like there's a lot you can say about an office's culture and a company's culture, which are uber important. And then we focused on that a lot during the pandemic. But at the end of the day, I think it's really about finding your balance and setting your own boundaries, because if you don't, that's when it gets out of control. And those every other week, 6 p.m. meetings become every day. So watch out, set your own boundaries, make sure you're kind of managing your own career instead of your career managing you.
Yeah. I think that looks a little bit different from everybody, but I think everybody on this panel is nodding their head going, yep, I've definitely experienced that. Yeah. Dwayne, what's that piece of career advice that has really helped you along your way?
Yeah, I think it's echoing a lot of what Melissa said in terms of advocating for yourself and not hesitating to do that. I think a lot of the opportunities in terms of your career, because it is your career, are really going to be, it's going to be incumbent upon you to sort of voice the things that you want to get into. She mentioned earlier some folks on the account side wanting to dive into strategy, and that her team's not going to know that unless the account person raises their hand, right? So being, comfortable and confident enough to advocate for yourself, to dive into new opportunities, recognize that those things may be above and beyond your remit day to day, and being willing to roll up your sleeves and diving in order to get whatever your ultimate goal is. And I think secondarily, and this has, I think, become a lot bigger over the course of the last few months, is recognize that everybody's running their own race, right? Like, don't try to size yourself up with all of your peers, your colleagues. We all got here in a different path, and the rest of the path is going to be unique to just you. So give yourself some grace as it relates to, how things are going outside of what's in your control, and just understand that, you're where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's your career, so you've got to own it. Yeah, that's good. Molly, what about you? What career advice would you share with others?
Yeah, one thing that I think is very, very easy to get into when you're especially first starting out is you want to be able to prove that you can do everything. You want to show your worth. You want to be able to handle it, not cause any trouble, so that you can keep moving up in your career. But we're all human. And I think one thing that was really hard for me to do when I was first starting out is ask for help. And let somebody know, if not everything is peachy and rosy all the time, especially if you're at an agency, there's always some client that is causing some kind of trouble, right? So being able to speak with your coworkers or your boss and let them know, hey, this is coming up, being proactive about it, and knowing that that's not going to necessarily, cause you any harm or difficulty when it comes to your career, but just being open and honest is something super important, because it's very easy when you're, just starting out that you want to just make everything seem like it's totally fine. But yeah, again, we're all human. So that's one thing I would say.
That's right. Yeah. And then finally, Amber, why don't you close us out by giving what's the career advice that has really stuck with you through the years?
Yeah. So I think my answer may be a little unorthodox, but I find it true. And it's that, you don't have to have it all figured out immediately. If you were like me and still unsure of which route you wanted to take within the marketing industry, especially since, marketing now is just so super broad, take some time to really figure it out. Apply to a diverse range of internships, from many different disciplines, and, see which one you resonate with the most. Also, one of our participants, Deanna, she messaged in the chat that she resonated with, being a generalist and, not really fitting into a certain box. And, I really love this. So, just echoing what Melissa said, if you find yourself loving everything and anything, and you can't find a specific role that speaks to all of those interests, don't let yourself be sequestered into a certain box. Carve out your own path and take up space. That's the thing about marketing. It's flexible, and you can truly create your own way, and you just go after it and make it happen. Also, open yourself up to learn as much as you can. knowledge is power. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, thank you for that. Awesome. Well, I thank you guys all so much for being here, answering these questions, and giving everybody watching a little bit more career advice. And again, if you guys have follow-up questions, because again, I'm sure we could have talked for another hour or two about all of these things, but feel free to message everybody on LinkedIn if you have any other follow-up questions. Shelby, back to you.
Awesome. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining our first opening keynote. I also remembered that I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Shelby Novak. I am an associate brand manager at Knoll Brands and also the VP of Collegiate Relations. And I could not do this without my awesome committee. So I'm really thankful for them and really excited to continue with the day. So Nina sent through a link in the chat. That's going to be our breakout session link. So that way we can see all of your beautiful faces. That'll be the same link that we use throughout the whole day. So feel free to keep that on and go back to it if you have to hop off for anything. So we're going to go ahead and head over to that link now, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.